Hello, everyone, and welcome into Coach Craig Sports. This is the MLB DFS Core Pick video, Core Pick live stream for today, Wednesday, April 5th. So pretty much what I'll be doing in this video, going through the recap of yesterday's picks, talking a little bit of weather for today's game. It is a little earlier slate today, oddly enough, starting at around 1 o'clock Eastern time, noon Central time, then adjusting from there, just debating on your time zone. We'll go through my core picks for today. I'll go through some of the top stacks that I do have in my cheat sheet, which is up over on Facebook. It's up on Twitter. It's up on YouTube. It's up on the Patreon page. So definitely be sure to check that out no matter where you're checking it out from. But without further ado, we'll get into the recap of yesterday's picks. If you guys do have any questions at any point during the live stream, feel free to leave it down in the live chat. If you are watching on replay, feel free to leave it in the comments as well. I'll be trying to get any updated news down there as well, whether it's starting lineups or anything else like that. Since we are starting earlier today, we have a couple starting lineups that I believe have came through, so we'll take a look at those, see if there's any spots that we could potentially attack on today's slate overall. But without further ado, we'll get started with the recap of yesterday's picks. A little bit of hit or miss day yesterday. We had Framber Valdez, a pitcher, at $9,800. He got to 46 points, so he was a hit. He was the top overall pitcher on yesterday's slate. So that was obviously good. That was really the first day that we kind of nailed down pitcher, which it's a little bit trickier early on in the year, especially with not knowing how deep guys are going to go into games, how on top of pitches guys are going to be on any given day, especially early on in the season. At first base, went with Pete Alonso. He had pretty good history against Wade Miley. Wade Miley actually pitched really well yesterday for the Brewers. The Brewers actually were on the opposite end of the stacking platform where they got to Max Scherzer pretty well. Pete Alonso 0 for 4, so obviously he was a miss yesterday. Same can be said about Mark Canha, who was $2,700. Typically, it's left-handed pitching very well, but Wade Miley was on top of his game yesterday, so both those guys end up with 0 points and misses, unfortunately. Matt Chapman at $3,000 got to 18.7 points. He was a hit. He was the 4th overall third baseman on yesterday's slate. Pretty solid game for him. And then we had Jordan Walker in the outfield at $2,500. Only got 3 points, so did give him a push since he was not a goose egg, but still could have been a better day at that. So not the greatest day overall. If you had some other decent plays, you had a chance to cash in, but still would have been a little bit more difficult with the 2 goose eggs yesterday. And unfortunately, that Mets stack did not work out. But some of the other stacks that I did have listed in the cheat sheet ended up working out pretty well, though. So without that being said, kind of talking weather today, it doesn't really look like we have any weather spots in question at this point in time. If that changes over the next couple hours before we get to lock, I'll leave something down in the comments. So not too much to talk about there at this point in time, unless you're playing like the really, really early slate. I believe it's like the Cubs and the Reds game. That one has a potential like rain out or delay at least. So that would be the only one on the day. I think there's one later on too that's not on the main slate that could have some potential weather. But as far as the main slate goes, no real weather concerns at this point in time. But with that being said, we're going to get off the recap screen. We'll go over to FanDuel, talk about the core picks that I do have for today's slate overall. So just letting this load up here real quick. So at the pitcher position, we're going with Pablo Lopez. He is $9,400. He obviously came out and he pitched really well his first start out, 46 points in his first start. This is a pseudo revenge game for him because he's going against the Miami Marlins, his former team. So there's not a lot of history for him against Marlins hitters because obviously he's played for the Marlins his whole career up until this season. There's a couple guys on the team he's faced before, but nothing too crazy there. Obviously, he had that uptick in velocity, which has continued over from spring training. He's throwing his sweeper pitch, which has been very effective for him so far, going against the Marlins lineup that's not the strongest in the world. Going to look like a pretty solid play today. There's a lot of good pitching options out there. He's just kind of the cheapest one out of the bunch and looks like a pretty solid value for me overall. Let's see. We do have a question here too. So it says, I know DFS is unpredictable. What is the best way going towards building a single entry lineup? So I would say for MLB at this point in time in the season, we try to find for a single entry. I think nailing down the pitcher is going to be the biggest thing, which is the most difficult thing to do for MLB at least early on in the season. So today you could look at a multiple different pitchers. Pablo Lopez is going to be a pretty solid value at his price tag. You could pay all the way up to Garrett Cole, who's pretty consistent, and the Phillies' offense has just not been good so far this season. You could look at guys like that. Christian Javier versus Detroit offers a lot of upside. Nailing down that pitcher position is the biggest thing that we can start with. And then going from there, if we're playing on single entry, whether you you're probably not stacking quite as much with single entry, if I'm being completely honest. But we're just trying to find guys that are good values. One of the guys I'll talk about today is Brian Anderson, the core pick. He's off to a very hot start to start the year. Obviously, baseball's a little bit more unpredictable and event-based than other sports, just in general, because like we can go over some of these guys like J2 Realmuto is not in my core, but we'll just say him as an example. He is 11 for 17 with 1 home run versus Garrett Cole in his career. He still could go out and go 0 for 4 versus Garrett Cole today very easily. So there is lots of opportunities there. And then you could have the opposite end of the spectrum where a guy is like 0 for 7 in his career versus a certain pitcher. And then all of a sudden he hits 2 home runs today. So home runs, chasing them is a little bit more important to MLB. Obviously, guys that can get steals are a good value as well, especially if you're getting cheap steals as well, because you are getting some additional points there. But obviously, those guys still have to get on base and to steal the bases and everything else like that. But with the uptick in stolen bases this season, that is another way that we could take advantage potentially for DFS purposes as well. But getting back to these core picks, I have Anthony Rizzo, $3,700. He's off to a solid start to start the season. He is 5 for 15 with 2 home runs in his career versus Aaron Nola, who was pitching for the Phillies. Nola kind of unraveled in his first start, had one tough inning, I believe, in the 4th inning. So do like these Yankees hitters just going against him in general. And then going back with Anthony Rizzo, we'll just take a look at his box score too, or not his box score, but like kind of his game log so far this season. Going to do this with all the guys. So he has a hit in every single game so far this season. 15 points or more of the past 3 games. Obviously sat out yesterday, so he should be pretty well rested. So do like Anthony Rizzo quite a bit today. At third base, we're going with Alex Bregman. Kind of off to a slow start to the season. $3,200 pay down price tag for him at this point in time, though. He's going against Eduardo Rodriguez today, and he is 6 for 17 versus Eduardo Rodriguez with 2 home runs in his career. So some pretty good history there. Rodriguez, not quite the pitcher that he's been in the past when he was with Boston, kind of having his real success, but do like Bregman quite a bit today. Obviously, he's had that slower start to the season. We'll bring this up real quick, but still should be a pretty good day for this Astros team overall. But Bregman's kind of turned it around. So you'll see the first, the first 12 at bats, he didn't have a single hit, but the last 2 games when he's played in this Detroit series, he is 4 for 8. So he's kind of starting to turn around, hopefully, and kind of in this good matchup. It's in that area I like to attack, especially at a cheaper price tag when you're talking about Alex Bregman, $3,200. Typically, he's around that $3,600 price tag just in general. And then we're going down to yesterday's hero. It's Brian Anderson. He's off to a very, very strong start to the season, $2,500. You can play him at third base. You can play him at outfield. Just too cheap of a price tag at this point in time. He's going against David Peterson, who I believe he's 2 for 4 versus in his career as well. Guy that should hit left-handed pitching pretty well, as he's done in the past. Brian Anderson, tough year last year, dealt with some injuries, but definitely turning it back around. He's already got the 3 home runs, hit 2 yesterday. He's got obviously 3 in this series alone. He's got a hit in every single game. He's up over 9 points in 4 out of the 5 games so far this season. So this kind of riding a hot streak. It might be a little bit of point chasing at the same time, but when a guy's hitting this well, he's this cheap price tag, kind of have to go after it at this point in time. And then last but not least, we have Randy Arozarena, who is $3,900. He's going against the Washington Nationals today. Patrick Corbin, he's 2 for 3 versus him in his career, so not a large sample size there, but Arozarena is off to a pretty strong start to start the year. Patrick Corbin was one of the worst pitchers in all of baseball last year. I didn't have the greatest start against the Braves to start the season as well. Didn't pitch too deep into that game. So if you can get to him, if you can get to that Nationals bullpen, going to look pretty good for the Tampa Bay Rays today and Randy Arozarena. Pulling up his game logs real quick too for you guys as well while we're at it. So you'll see he has a hit in every single game this year as well. He has just the one solo. He has the 1 home run at this point in time. He's been over 20 points 3 out of the 5 games so far this season. So looking like a pretty good play once again today. But that's kind of what we do have in terms of the core picks at this point in time. If you go with these 5 guys that I do have listed, you have $12,300 remaining, just under $3,100 per player. So definitely a lot of room to mix and match from there, whether you want to pay up for some guys, whether you want to take a little bit more balanced approach. Definitely a lot of ways that we can attack it on today's slate overall. But with that being said, last thing I got is kind of the teams to stack. I know last couple of days been throwing in some prize picks. Unfortunately, I believe 2 days ago we went 1-1. Yesterday we unfortunately went 1-2 since Domingo Germán decided to strike out a lot of guys. At this point in time, there's not too much up on the prize pick side. So if there's anything else that pops up throughout the day, I'll try to list it down in the comments or on my Twitter at Coach Craig Sport. But going to close out of the FanDuel side at this point in time. We're going to go over and talk about the teams to stack from my cheat sheet for today. So the first one that I do have is the New York Yankees going against Aaron Nola. Obviously, Aaron Nola struggled a little bit in his first start. He doesn't have the greatest career history against this New York Yankees team. Anthony Rizzo's hit him well. Josh Donaldson's hit him well. Giancarlo Stanton's hit him pretty well. Obviously, Aaron Judge is always a threat to hit a home run on any given slate. So definitely like stacking the Yankees once again today. Looking at the Atlanta Braves going against Miles Mikolas. Miles Mikolas, not a bad pitcher by any means, but not a very good first start. I believe he gave up 10 hits in that start. The Braves lineup, pretty good lineup just in general. Some of these guys have pretty good history versus Miles Mikolas as well. Austin Riley is one that really stands out. Marcell Ozuna has 2 home runs versus him in his career. Eddie Rosario is even 4 for 5 versus him in his career as well. So definitely some options to look at for the Braves team overall there as well. Just noting all these notable hitter and pitcher matchups as well. If you want more access to that, be sure to check out my Patreon at patreon.com/CoachCraigSport. Small monthly donation over there, but you do get some of those notes on a daily basis, Monday through Friday, and then occasionally on the weekend as well. And then we get over to Tampa Bay Rays going against Patrick Corbin. Already talked about him being one of the worst pitchers in all of baseball last season. Not too great his first start against the Braves either. Probably not pitching too far into this game. If you can get to him, if you can get to the Nationals bullpen overall, it's going to be a pretty good day for this Rays team. Fun team to stack. And they're, one of those teams that they don't have too many pricey guys besides like Randy Arozarena and Wander Franco, excuse me. And then last but not least, I do have the Milwaukee Brewers. Obviously, they had a very hot day yesterday against Max Scherzer, who's a pretty good pitcher in his own right. Going against David Peterson, had a very good first start to the season, but some of these Brewers hitters have hit him pretty well in the past in a limited sample size, whether it is Brian Anderson, Wally Adames is, I believe, 3 for 5 versus him as well. Definitely some opportunities to exploit there. Maybe some of those cheaper bats for the Brewers today if you're trying to go with some of that stack as well. Expect probably guys like Luke Voigt, maybe Owen Miller, maybe Mike Brosseau getting in the lineup too versus the left-handed pitcher as well. And then let's see. So that's pretty much what I do have for the teams to stack. There's a lot more there too. I have about 3 more listed on my notes over on Patreon as well. But these are the 4 that really stood out to me the most. And let's see what we have here. Do you think Cease could break the slate playing against the Giants who suck? I don't think the Giants specifically suck. I believe that Dylan Cease could have a good game. I believe he has the same type of upside as Garrett Cole could have. Both of them can get double-digit strikeouts. Both of them can pitch like 6 innings. Cole's probably a better chance to pitch more than 6 innings, if I had to say so myself. But, the Giants, they're not a bad team. They are a team that does give up some strikeouts, though, as well. Cease can get some strikeouts. If he limits his walks, which he did a little bit better, at least early on this year, a little bit better last year as well. That's going to be the big thing for him overall. He's definitely in play. I mean, when I'm just looking at the pitchers in general, let me pull up my notes too. We can go over some of the pitchers that I probably would play the most. But let me just bring that up real quick. Because like I said, the biggest thing on any given slate is getting this pitcher position right, especially on FanDuel side. Obviously, I don't talk too much about DraftKings. If you guys have specific questions related to DraftKings, you can feel free to leave them down in the comments and I'll get back to them throughout the day as well. Obviously, DraftKings is a little bit different strategy there. The scoring's a lot different. You have to use 2 different pitchers. Personally, my opinion, I play a lot more FanDuel. I'll throw in a lineup here and there on DraftKings, but in order to have the most success on DraftKings, I would recommend like 20 max and 50 max and 150 max, and just so you can get as much exposure to that double pitcher type of slate, so you can kind of mix and match some of those guys a little bit more. But when we're talking about pitchers for FanDuel for today, obviously I have the 3 guys in my cheat sheet. It's Garrett Cole, it's Christian Javier, and it's Pablo Lopez. Those are the 3 ones that kind of stand out in respect to their price point and just in general. If you want to play Dylan Cease over Garrett Cole, that makes some sense. Garrett Cole is probably going to be a lot more popular. Shane McClanahan, I like a lot today against Washington. But those 3 guys at the top, definitely look at them. Corbin Burns does have the high end upside, but he's kind of hit or miss versus the Mets. Didn't come off a great start. Logan Webb, he hasn't pitched against the White Sox too much in general, but White Sox are a team that can strike out a little bit. Logan Webb had double-digit strikeouts game 1. Probably not a guy I'm getting to myself personally, just because he's sandwiched in between some of these other guys. Christian Javier has the high-end upside, obviously going against Detroit. Jacob deGrom, for me personally, he was just a little bit risky because we don't know how many pitches he's going to throw, how deep he's going to go into the game. Aaron Nola, risky against the Yankees. Pablo Lopez, like I talked about in the core picks overall, I do like him quite a bit. What he showed week one, or start one, I should say, plus what we saw in the spring makes him an interesting option. Plus going against that Marlins lineup, that's not that great overall. And then Jesus Luzardo on the opposite end of that game is another guy that has some high end upside if he can keep his walks down and everything else like that. Going against that Twins lineup is not that great, but Luzardo doesn't have too much history against them. Could favor him as well. Peterson, it's really hit or miss versus that Brewers team. I think the Brewers are a good team to stack. Mitch Keller against Boston, it's not too much that we want to talk about there. Like getting down to like the nitty gritty at the end, like if you want to play like Corey Kluber at like $7,100 against the Pirates and hope he has a good game, that's something you can do. But how far is he actually going to pitch into the game, and how much strikeout upside is he going to be able to give you at the same time? And then who are you paying up to kind of, I don't even know how to phrase this, but like who are you paying up for hitters wise to cover the gap between him and some of the elite pitchers on today's slate overall in terms of that strikeout upside? But that's pretty much what I do have at this point in time. I'm going to go over to RotoWire. We'll look at some daily lineups. I know the Twins have theirs out at this point in time. I don't know if any of the other ones from the main slate do. Let's see. It does look like we have some. So I'm going to get off this real quick. We'll go over here. Let me get this up real quick. Just bringing up RotoWire for some of these starting lineups at this point in time. Let me see this real quick. So let's see. For the Phillies, it's a pretty standard lineup at this point in time. We got Jake Cave there in the outfield. Going against Garrett Cole, I'm not super interested in any of these guys. The one guy that does have really good history versus Garrett Cole is JT Realmuto. So if you're taking a shot from a Phillies bat, probably Realmuto. If you really want to get contrarian, if you're playing like a 150 max or something like that and you want to build a Philly stack against Garrett Cole, it's a one way to approach the slate, but probably not going to work out too well most of the time. From the Yankees side, let's see what we got today. Donaldson is in the starting lineup. He's got decent history against Nola, so that's something to point out. Gleyber Torres has obviously been off to the hot start to start the year. If you want to play Judge, if you want to play Stanton, if you want to play Rizzo, you can definitely play those guys as well. Pretty easy team to stack overall. But excuse me, those ones weren't even confirmed at this point in time. I think the Twins are the only ones with a confirmed lineup at this point in time. Looks like it. So the Twins are the only ones with the confirmed lineup at this point in time. Obviously, the other ones I'll be posting down in the comments. Excuse me for trying to talk too much. I missed the little dot there. But the Twins confirmed lineup at this point in time. We got Buxton Correa. Donovan Solano's in third and at first base. He's one of the very few guys in their lineup that has relative history versus Jesus Luzardo. I believe he's 4 for 7 versus him too as well. He's a cheap guy. He is, I believe, second base and shortstop eligible on FanDuel. So if you want to kind of punt play, pay down option, go with him. Jose Miranda, definitely a decent guy to hit in safeties. We got Kyle Farmer playing second, and Jeffers, Willie Castro, Trevor Larnach, and Michael Taylor. So when you're looking at this lineup, not too scary by any means. So if you want to play Jesus Luzardo today, definitely not a problem with that. He's just got to get around Buxton and Correa mainly. Miranda's there as well, but the rest of it is not too scary at this point in time. If you want to pay down for Donovan Solano, it's kind of a pay down option. Definitely have some exposure to him just in general today. But with that being said, that's pretty much what I do have for today's live stream, for today's video for the MLB DFS Core Picks for today, April 5th. As always, if you have any questions related to MLB DFS, be sure to leave them down in the comments below and I'll get back to you as quickly as possible. Also, be sure to let me know your favorite play on tonight's. Could be somebody from my core 5 picks, could be somebody from my teams to stack. Definitely interested in hearing what you guys have to say. But with that being said, if you're brand new to my channel, haven't already done so, please consider subscribing. Definitely would appreciate it. It's the community that we're trying to build here at Coach Craig Sports, which is one that's truly for you, the viewers, helping you with your DFS. Right now, we got MLB DFS going on. We got some XFL DFS. I'll be doing a recap for XFL week number 7 later today as well. Kind of going through some of the target shares, percentage of pass attempts, snap counts, everything else like that. So definitely be sure to check that out. That's something you're into. That is over strictly on the DraftKings side because that's the only DFS site that does have XFL, but relatively soon we'll be doing some USFL DFS as well. So if you're in any of that, which at least you're into the MLB at this point in time, do assume since you're watching this video, definitely be sure to check that out. Also, be sure to have that notification bell turned on so you never miss a time that I do go live for these live streams. Obviously, MLB is varying a little bit based on the day, but obviously with the earlier start today, I got everything done last night and decided to go decided to go live a little bit earlier today. As I mentioned before, not too much up on Price Picks at this point in time. Be sure to check out my Twitter. Be sure to check out the comments. I'll throw something down in there throughout the day if things really do stand out for me for that Price Pick betting perspective. If you guys are into any NFL draft content with NFL draft prospect interviews, be sure to check those out on the channel as well. But with that being said, definitely be sure. Yeah, excuse me. But with that being said, that's pretty much all I have for today's video, for today's live stream. Once again, do truly appreciate everybody that did take the time out of their day to tune in, whether you're watching live or on replay. Definitely means a lot to me, and I hope that each and every one of you has a great rest of your day.